This Saturday episode of New Politics was released on the 6th of June, 2026, and produced on the lands of the Wongal and Gadigal people.
If Australian citizens make serious allegations of abuse in Israeli custody, why isn't the government demanding answers? And if all claims of sexual violence deserve investigation, does that apply in every single case? The real test isn't what governments say about human rights, it's about who they're willing to confront when those rights are violated. I'm Eddie Djokovic.
I'm David Lewis. All of this is coming up in this big episode of New Politics.
And if you're listening in and haven't subscribed to our website at New Politics, you're missing out on half of what we do. There's regular articles and analysis of this strange world of politics. It's all free, and you can subscribe at newpolitics.com.au. And of course, if you do want to support us, it's just $5 per month at Patreon and Substack, and all of this is a good way to support independent journalism.
I was on the last mission, and there was an escalation in violence there, where there was sexual assault and there was physical violence, but this time it was much more. I was on one of the prison boats where 180 people were systematically bashed and beaten. We had 40 people who have broken ribs. We have 12 sexual assaults. We have people who were tasered in the face. People were syringed with unknown sedatives. We were tortured. I was put down, cable tied. They put so much water under me for an hour that I thought I was going to drown. I was sexually assaulted in this kind of torture chamber, and 5 men were bashing me and smashing my face. And then it just continued for the whole time, whether that was the prison boat or whether that was where we were taken to Ashdod. It was a relentless and very targeted and very planned campaign of violence so that we wouldn't come back. But, they've broken our bones, but they haven't broken our soul. And now that I've met them, I know that they don't have a soul. So we are much stronger than they are, than Free Palestine.
And that was Juliette Lamont, who was on the Sumud Flotilla, detailing the way that she was treated by the Israeli Defence Forces. And for well over 2 years, we've watched the same scene play out in Australia, where there's yet another atrocity being committed by the State of Israel. This time it's happening in southern Lebanon. There's another attack on civilians. There's infrastructure that's being bombed and destroyed. 1 million people have been displaced. And we have an Australian government that's raising the eyebrow just a tiny bit and then just putting its head down and getting back to business as usual. And that business as usual is the business of ignoring the many crimes of the State of Israel, supplying all of those F-35 parts to Israel. And if that wasn't enough, Australia is now also supplying explosives to Israel. And the supply of explosives is something that was revealed in reporting from Dave Milner at the Shot, and that's another independent outlet that you should be checking out and having a good look at. But the Albanese government, it keeps presenting itself as a defender of international law and that international rules-based order that we keep hearing about. But they always become very quiet when the State of Israel is involved. There's always that level of concern or grave concern, depending on what the situation is. And that's what happened when the Australian aid worker Zomi Frankham was targeted and killed by the IDF in Gaza in 2024. And it's also now what's happening with the allegations of rape and torture that were made by Australian citizens who were on the Sumud Flotilla and were arrested by the IDF. Lots of concern, a little bit of condemnation, but certainly no action against the State of Israel at all from the Australian Foreign Minister, Penny Wong. So the way that the Australian government responds to all of this is a test for Anthony Albanese and for Penny Wong. And these are tests that they've been failing over the past 2.5 years. So I'm not sure why we're expecting anything different. But if they're not going to stand up to Israel when the allegation is that Australian citizens have been raped by Israeli military personnel, well, you just wonder what will it take for them to speak up and act against this rogue state and the regime of Benjamin Netanyahu.
There was allegedly a phone call the other day where Trump went off his head at Netanyahu, saying that if it wasn't for me, you'd be in jail, which is broadly true. The same could also be said by Netanyahu to Trump. But certainly this defense that we see, not of the country of Israel as a concept, that's fine. That's something that should be discussed and argued, not of the lawful people of Israel as a whole, many of whom don't like the government or its actions, but this defense of Netanyahu, who is not a deeply beloved and respected figure in the world. He's not Nelson Mandela, for example. He's not Václav Havel. He's not even Barack Obama.
He's just Benjamin Netanyahu, really, isn't he?
Yeah. He's got a terrible reputation. He's got a legacy that nobody would want. And it's not anti-Semitic to say that Benjamin Netanyahu is a terrible leader based on these facts. In the same way, it's not anti-Italian to disagree with Anthony Albanese. When the world wakes up from this delusion that we have that men like Netanyahu need to be protected, it's going to be a very interesting time, I think, as we try and realize, why did we do this? Why did we protect Donald Trump? Why did we protect Benjamin Netanyahu? Why did we protect Boris Johnson? It made no sense, yet we did it. That makes even less sense. We're coming to the end of the period of the dominance of the mediocre white male. Somehow we'll cope.
I'm sure we will, but the point is that these are serious allegations that have been made by these Australian citizens about their treatment while they were illegally detained by the Israel Defence Forces, and that includes claims of sexual violence, physical abuse and rape. And this evidence has been provided to the International Criminal Court in the hope of finding out some answers about this. And I don't think the issue is about whether these allegations are proven or not by the ICC. I think it's that issue of supporting a proper investigation. And so far, Australia hasn't supported this investigation by the ICC. And it's in contrast to whenever these types of incidents of sexual violence or human rights abuses occur anywhere else in the world. And for many years, since the Me Too movement commenced, I don't know when that was, 2018 or thereabouts, and especially after the sexual abuse of Brittany Higgins at Parliament House in 2019, and after we had Grace Tame as the Australian of the Year in 2021, well, political leaders all across Australia have said, well, women who come forward with their allegations, well, they should be heard, they should be believed, and their claims should be properly investigated. And here's what Anthony Albanese said about this issue a couple of years ago.
I'm proud to be here with women, men, boys and girls saying we want violence against women and children to stop. I know, and that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. I know that we all must do better. But I know this as well, that I've got to be honest. It's not just government's problem. It's a problem of our entire society. We need to make sure that this isn't just up to women, it's up to men to change men's behaviour as well.
And Penny Wong did say that she believes the allegations that have been made, but it's almost like the words had to be extracted out of her, and all she offered was words of empathy, which is what anyone on the street can offer, and you just expect a lot more from the Foreign Minister on this sort of situation. Here's the exchange at Senate estimates between Senator Marine Faruqi and Senator Wong during the week.
Minister, do you believe these women?
Well, my principal position is to always believe women when allegations of sexual assault are made.
So you believe these women?
Hang on, please don't interrupt, Senator. I have an answer. I also want to say publicly, now you've chosen to disclose that information publicly. I assume that is something you have consent for.
This is public information,
Senator,
which you
can I finish?
Obviously haven't seen.
Senator, yes, it's one thing for it to be reported, it is another thing to use it in a Senate estimates in this way. So I'm assuming you have consent for that. Now, if I can respond to those allegations are terrible. They are horrific. And the treatment is unacceptable. And I express my empathy to those women to whom that was done.
So it's obvious that this application of, or the idea that we need to listen to women about sexual violence, well, it depends on who they are, depends on whether they're wearing a keffiyeh or not, and it depends on what type of men have perpetrated this act.
Yeah, Foreign Affairs should be right all over this. What are the allegations? When did they happen? Is the victim okay? Does she need hospitalisation? Does she need counselling? Does she need to be tested for all kinds of diseases and syndromes and injuries? And I'm sure that they are helping her, but we're not being assured that she is. And I hope that she is okay, and I hope that she will be okay. And it's just an awful thing to even have to consider to talk about. But Australia, in its desire to not be seen as anti-Israel, is letting down its own citizens. And at what point do you favour another country's interests over your own? Yeah, it's just awful.
And I think that the involvement of the International Criminal Court, well, it does take it to a different level as well, because the State of Israel is not involved and the State of Australia is not involved in this process, although it is dealing with Australian citizens and also Israeli citizens, I assume. And people have asked us, why did these Australian citizens take it to an international forum? And the answer is, well, all of these people would have known that Australia wouldn't do anything about it. And any form of independent review performed by the State of Israel would have been a complete joke as well, and they would have denied it completely anyway. And when it comes to the State of Israel, Australia just needs to be embarrassed into doing something about these sorts of things. And I think definitely Israel needs to be condemned, absolutely condemned for its actions, but it does this to Palestinian people every single day of the week. And because it acts with impunity and it's never called out. It's called out by a lot of NGOs and people like us, but it's never called out by government. So effectively, it acts with impunity. It just feels like you can do this to anyone and also get away with it, and because it usually does get away with it. But I think that the debate itself, it goes far beyond any country. It's just a question about whether international law is going to be applied equally. And sure, we don't live in a perfect world, but we want the world to be less imperfect on a lot of these issues. And the other point, David, is that Australia used to be one of the great supporters of all of these institutions and actually helped to create them. That was the United Nations, the World Bank, World Health Organization. It was also part of the Bretton Woods Agreement all the way back in 1944. The ICC helped to set that up as well. And now it seems like they couldn't care less about any of them. And I think, well, generally, we'll let the International Criminal Court do its work, see what the judgment is, and then see whether Australia supports it or not.
Yeah. Also should be said it was an Australian Labor government that was crucial in this. Chifley was Prime Minister. Evatt ends up being Secretary or President of the United Nations. And Australia and Australian Labor have a very proud stake in these organisations that the Australian Labor government is doing their very best to ignore. So the world is turning upside down and continually turning upside down.
I think there's also a domestic component to it as well. So the Australian government's approach to the conflict in Gaza and now in southern Lebanon, well, it's starting to face more scrutiny. And sure, it's not going to be the majority of people, but I think it's reaching a point, that critical point, where there's enough people to show their concern that it's going to affect the Australian government and affect domestic politics. So there's always going to be domestic ramifications for all of this. So, you know, apart from all the people that are being outraged about what Israel is doing in the Middle East, West Asia region, there's also a large Australian Lebanese population here. And with the Australian government just being so quiet about Israel, Israel's actions in southern Lebanon, I just think that there's going to be a backlash for the government from those communities. And the Lebanese community in Australia is quite complex as well. There's religious differences between different Lebanese communities in Australia. So, but aside from that, I think there is going to be a backlash for the government from these communities. And there's also a changing political landscape in Australia. There's younger Australians, especially millennials and Gen Z, that are paying more attention to this. And they're also looking at Australia's response to all of this. And as I said before, sure, it's not the majority, but I think there is a critical mass that has been achieved with all of this. And they're starting to look for more accountability and for more consistency on all of this. So it's not just the Australian government's management of foreign policy, and it's this faraway issue that they can sort of, pay lip service to and then not worry about it. It's about how the government maintains public trust and credibility on the issue when it comes to a domestic audience. And it's tried to avoid the issue for far too long, but I don't think we'll be able to do this for too much longer.
No, we can't. The long-term legacy, and this is what I don't understand with the governments. And I'll be fair, the Albanese government is going to have some achievements that we can look back on and say that was actually okay. Let's be fair. But those achievements are going to be outshone by this bizarre support of a criminal government, by this notion that we would rather not offend a crook overseas than protect our own people, that we would rather see debate shut down on valid things than risk offending people who spend their life permanently offended, looking for attacks on their character and personality when none exist. And I don't quite understand why you'd blow up every good thing you could do in pursuit of this. Maybe one day this will be explained to us.
That's it for this episode of New Politics. Thanks for listening in. And if you value independent journalism without the influence of corporate backing, join New Politics at newpolitics.com.au and support us directly. It's just $5 per month, and we always try to keep it very simple. If you like what we do, please send some support our way. It keeps our commitment to independent journalism ticking along. I'm Eddie Djokovic. Thanks for listening in, and it's goodbye to our listeners.
I'm David Lewis. We'll see you next time.